Well. It's been a long one.
Did you get to plant trees? I think that's
grow
the question.
Grow trees, yes.
Well, good morning. Welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe. My name is Fred Indemuli. Yes, this is day one after that holiday.
Oh, yes.
How did it go for you, Stanley?
It was chilled. I had planted my trees way back, so I'll still plant and grow more trees later on. But we missed you. Tell us, how was your holiday?
Flo is still planting trees, or at least washing her gumboots.
Oh, yes.
I think she's running late, but she'll be joining us in a time now.
Yes.
Meanwhile, we continue with our Christmas countdown. 41 days to Christmas. Mambo inaendelea.
Oh, yes.
Even as you plant your trees, it's only about 40 days now to Christmas.
Oh, yes.
The sherehe is starting to kick in.
Oh, yes. But some other whole highlights, even in the floods, hopefully they don't really mess this up. Speaking of which, let's cross over to our highlights this morning. First off, heavy rains claim 46 lives so far across the country as floods sweep away homes and livestock and destroy roads as well as electricity transmission lines.
More pain ahead with the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, set to release reviewed fuel prices for November-December today.
And some sad news, former nominated Senator GOTV Omondi, who has been serving as member of the Kakamega County Assembly, died at the Aga Khan Hospital, Kisumu, after a short illness.
Yes, time for a top story, and it has a lot to do with that third highlight. Former Senator GOTV Omondi has died at the Aga Khan Hospital, Kisumu, after a short illness. Until her death, Omondi was serving as ODM-nominated member of the Kakamega County Assembly. According to the Kakamega Deputy Governor Ayub Savula, the former senator was admitted to the ICU wing on Saturday after suffering from blood pressure and diabetes, but succumbed yesterday at 6 p.m. Omondi served as a nominated senator between 2013 and 2017. She surprised many in 2017 when she announced her intention to vie for the Cholera Ward seat in Matungu constituency and not seek to go back to the Senate. She has been serving as member of the County Assembly since then. Let's now get the day's diary before we take a look at the dailies.
Yes, definitely, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Well, first off, in our day's diary, today is the 14th of November, so you know what happens in each and every single 14th. Today, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, that is EPRA, is expected to review the fuel prices. This comes amid a looming expected increase in this particular fuel prices, according to Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir, who says this will be exacerbated by the Israel-Palestine war. And away from that, the Secretary to the Cabinet, that is Mercy Wanjau, will today chair a meeting with PSs, CEOs, and board chairpersons of 17 state-run agencies over compliance with the presidential directive on boarding of the services on the e-citizen platform. Now to matters health, as we flip this diary with you, World Diabetes Day today is World Diabetes Day, which provides an opportunity to raise awareness of diabetes as a global public health issue and what needs to be done collectively and individually for better prevention, diagnosis, and management of the condition. And in the Parliament, both the National Assembly as well as the Senate, respectively and individually, the members of Parliament are this afternoon expected to debate on President William Ruto's inaugural State of the Nation address. In his maiden address, which happened last week, Ruto touched on issues on health, security, as well as cost of living. Let's get into today in history now. And back in 2006, South Africa became the first African country to allow same-sex marriages after the parliament approved the controversial Civil Unions Bill. And back in 1906, former United States President Theodore Roosevelt becomes the first president to visit a foreign country while in office, traveling to Panama on board USS Louisiana BB-19. That is the day's diary, as well as Today in History. Remember, this diary will be updated as we move on the show.
Standard this morning, intrigues behind the 17 billion shilling mystery petrol deepen. Who owns what? Kenya Ports Authority has said the oil cargo belongs to Aramco and not Njeri, who is still missing. KPA claims it had no dealings with Njeri's company, and the mystery continues. That story is on page 9. A very interesting story about importation of oil and a missing person and who exactly owns what and what the KPA has done with that cargo that was delivered. Other highlights on the front page, yes, a very interesting photo of the president on one knee, down on one knee, planting a tree yesterday. And they say climate, one tree at a time. President William Ruto planting a tree at Kiu Wetland in Makueni County yesterday. He was with the First Lady and Deputy President, as well as a spouse to the Deputy President. 150 million trees, that's a number of trees the government had intended to plant yesterday. And it looks like they were generally successful. Mm-hmm. The move is in line with efforts to mitigate against climate change. And more interesting photos in the inside pages of the Standard with people planting trees in different places, especially page 6, 7, 8, and even page 4. Different government officials and Kenyans in general planting trees during that tree growing day that we had yesterday. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard: supplier delivers mosquito nets. Ministry of Health will undertake a mass distribution of the nets after Global Fund awarded tender to different company. KEMSA was embroiled in a tender scam that saw senior officials sacked. That story is on page 14. And this one is a reminder of one of the biggest scandals to rock this administration soon after it came into power, the KEMSA scandal with the tendering of the mosquito nets. On the inside pages, in the Financial Standard, how taxes sustain high pump prices. Kenyans are paying more for fuel compared to other counterparts in East African countries owing to various levies passed by MPs. And Ruto's plan to avoid economic catastrophe. And remember today, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, will be issuing the reviewed fuel prices for the month of November, mid-November to mid-December. So yes, do expect a few changes here and there starting midnight. Mm-hmm. Other highlights on the top strip of the Standard: Magoha's 250 million in life, but 150 million in death Widow of the late minister has told the court her husband was worth 100 million shillings less than he had declared in Parliament during his vetting. The story is on page 2. And another highlight, officials push for mobile labs to ease JSS congestion. Matters education, the story is on page 12. And that's the front page of the Standard. If we may flip over to the back page, take a look at sports headlines. It's time for Kenyans to believe in us, Harambee Stars Masood Juma and coach Engin Firat say during a press conference yesterday. Kenya will be facing Gabon and Seychelles in World Cup qualifiers this week. Masood ready to put team first ahead of World Cup qualifiers. Interesting. And how Kiprop quenched 42-kilometer E10 title thirst. And those are the highlights on the Standard today.
Well, let's have a look at the Daily Nation and the headline there. Another scandal loading. Forgery claim in 17 billion shillings fuel saga, and the Galana Energies Limited says consignment was to meet the country's requirement. And just at a glance at the port chief's disowned document presented by businesswoman Anne Njoroge as fake and intended to steal a consignment of diesel whose ownership has been in dispute. The cargo was uploaded in contravention of a court order, even as the traders' whereabouts remain unknown, and her lawyers sue police bosses of arrest. And that is the story on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Same thing we saw on the Standard. Another story making headline on the Daily Nation on the right strip. Top lawyers jostle for upcoming JSC vacancy, and daggers have been drawn and a stage set for what promises to be a bruising campaign to elect the Law Society of Kenya male representative at the Judicial Service Commission. Well, the election is about 60 days away. Lobbying and canvassing is on top gear, with regional caucuses retreating to devise how best to approach the election. Another story there. Woman swims across a flooded Tana River to deliver son in hospital. And Mohammed Bilal there is 4 days old today. When he grows older and is able to understand, an intriguing tale of his birth awaits him. And that is his heroic mom pictured there on page 3 of the Daily Nation. That's where you find that beautiful story. And on the health pullout this morning, how a brother became a bother. That is the story there. And a picture of the president there while planting trees yesterday, of course, with his deputy president and the second lady there and the first lady as well. And stories and pictures on pages 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And President Ruto there gets his hands dirty as he led Kenyans in a national tree planting drive yesterday at Kiu Wetland in Makueni County. Millions of trees were planted countrywide, even as the state plans to use learners to reach ambitious 15 billion trees by 2032. And I hope you took part in that tree planting exercise. Green future, Ruto sets Kenya on path to 15 billion trees, a target. On the back page of the Daily Nation, HIV response spending to double in 3 years, Diseases Agency reveals. The numbers there, 36 billion shillings is the amount of money that the national government is planning to allocate to HIV response in the country over the next 3 years. Another story on the back page of the Daily Nation, Kenya set on stamping out plastic pollution, says President William Ruto. And in matters football, Harambee Stars coach Firat grapples with injuries of 4 key players ahead of World Cup qualifying clash with Gabon on Thursday. Yes, that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa leo na taarifa kuu pale ya ucheshi ya kushangaza. Haki Kenya sihame. Wakenya wabuni vichekesho vya kila aina walipoadhimisha siku kuu ya kitaifa ya kupanda miti iliyofanyika jana. Na wadokeza kuwa ni vituko hivi usahau masaibu yanayowakumba kutokana na gharama ya juu ya maisha na kuzama mitandaoni kwa ucheshi. Mengine katika ukurasa wa pili umechapisha picha pale ya Rais William Ruto na Wakenya wengine wakipanda miti. Kwingineko Wafanyakazi wa J Finless wazimwa. Koti ya Uingereza yarejesha Kenya kesi kuhusu fidia kwa majeruhi. Kwingineko mafuta ya bilioni 17. Mawakili wa mshtaki mkurugenzi mkuu wa DCI kwa kutoweka kwa mfanyabiashara anayehusishwa na uagizaji mafuta. Pale juu, Raila amtaka Ruto arejeshe kazi mtaani. Nasema hiyo ndiyo njia ya haraka ya kuokoa uchumi unaoyumba. Katika masuala ya michezo, pale Tanzania, pale Afrika Kusini, miamba hao wa Afrika Kusini wagonga Casablanca katika fainali. Wanazungumzia Mamelodi Sundowns, mabingwa. Na hatimaye katika masuala ya michezo, pale chini pigo kuu kwa Harambee. Lakini taarifa kuu katika gazeti la Taifa leo ni haki Kenya si hami.
Tuhame tuende wapi?
Tuende wapi?
We shall be there no matter what. Let's take a look at the Business Daily today. On the Business Daily, Kenya's loans 60% more expensive than Tanzania and Rwanda. Yes, interesting headline there. The other big headline on the front page of the Business Daily, duty-free goods cost KRA 30 billion shillings foregone tax. The importation of duty-free agricultural products denied the government close to 30 billion shillings in taxes. Other highlights on the front page of the the Business Daily, sorry. IMF deal behind Ruto's forest cover drive. You see now there's a reason behind the tree planting or tree growing yesterday. As a nationwide tree planting gets underway yesterday, President William Ruto was holed up in a meeting at State House with an International Monetary Fund mission led by Mr. Terera there, who was accompanied by his resident representative, Saim Chakir.
Interesting.
Elsewhere.
Interesting. There's no way you're just getting a ceremonious holiday.
We enjoy the holiday.
Yes.
Whatever deal they are going to have, Kenya Sihami. Elsewhere, UBA Bank allowed to sell Uchumi land, and Google users have 2 weeks to reactivate dormant accounts. That's the front page of the Business Daily today.
So let's have a look at the Star and the headline there, weakening shilling taking toll on Kenya. And Treasury is trying to reduce the widening deficit with more borrowing. And budget deficit has risen by 143.5 billion shillings from 718 billion shillings to 861 billion shillings. That is the headline there on the Star. Also some pictures there of President Ruto. Raila led Kenyans in national tree planting. And other stories making headline on the Star this morning. The very top strip, retire from politics, numbers will decide, Raila tells backyard. And that is a story on page 7 of the Star this morning. And on my government pullout, okay, yes, that is what we have on the Star this morning.
On People Daily, the big story is queries over cash for Ruto's projects. They call it a grand dream. Kenya Kwanza has lined up mega programs expected to consume nearly 3 trillion Kenyan shillings to implement, but experts raise eyebrows on source of funds, warning it to lead to more taxes. But Treasury assures that recovering economy will accommodate schemes. That is on page 4. And the bottom strip there, they have the photo of President William Ruto planting a tree. On the top strip, why Malema touched raw nerve during Nairobi visit. They have that for you on page 2. And just aside it, Kenyan in UK denied a visa for child aged 6 years. And at the very top scroll, in probably red or maroon, will state increase fuel prices? That is a big question today on page 15. And I mean, we're actually curious, even for the viewer. What do you expect? What are your expectations today, even as EPRA reviews the fuel prices? So even as Kenyans expect, will it increase? But how much will it increase? If it's going to reduce?
By now we're used to the pain. The expectation by most Kenyans, if you ask them right now, you expect more pain come midnight. So
I hope they surprise us.
Kenya tuhami.
Tuhami. Note this, the headline on Malema just reminded me of an interesting thing that has been going on online over the weekend. There's a certain senator who said that his visa should be taken, then forgetting that Kenya and South Africa, it's visa-free since January. Shows the ignorance and roadside talks that some of our leaders are having.
Interesting. Kenya tuhami. But let's just check what is headlining in our neighboring countries. We cross over to Uganda and take a look at the Daily Monitor. And the big headline in Kampala this morning, savers fake death to get NSSF money. People are getting interesting and creative there. The National Social Security Fund says their investigations have revealed that some members who are still alive have reportedly been recorded as dead on the National Identification and Registration Authority database. Well, our neighbors are getting creative in Uganda. And also on the front page of the Daily Monitor, a photo there of refugees. Congolese refugees flood Uganda border. They're trying to cross over into Uganda. And in this day and age, matters refugees, especially in this region. Interesting. Another highlight, smooth start to Senior 6 exam. That's on the top strip. And basically, those are the highlights on the front page of the Daily Monitor. I think the only other interesting one, the very bottom scroll, 45 people arrested at Nyege Nyege Festival. And that's what's headlining in Uganda today.
Let's have a look at the East Africa for this week. The headline there is part of an oil test, Museveni-Ruto ties, and the latest row on petrol supply is likely to drive Ruto's mentor further away as Uganda finds new trading partners and the Kenyan leader looks for new friends. That is the top headline there on the East African, and also pictured there, Saudi Africa Pact, the president there, among other African leaders. And on the top strip of the East African today, Malema, disappointed in Ruto, and firebrand South African politician lays into Kenyan leader over his promises. Other stories on the East African, the tough task ahead of Kir as EAC chair and conflict in his own country, war in Eastern DRC, trade rows and plague block are just what's in tray for the new chair of the East African community. Very interesting stories on the East African this morning. Another interesting one, matters investment at the Congo to investors come all, and the country promises a future that is bankable all around. Yes, and Safaricom makes 180 million shillings in half year. Tough environment pushes telecom net profit down by 10%. And another story there, use the pound to save the economy, says Juba in the South Sudan refuses to relax its restriction on the US dollar. And those are some of the stories that we have on the East African for this week.
Na mwisho katika gazeti la Mwananchi, mfupa mgumu ndiyo taarifa kuu pale, masuala ya mafuriko jangwani. Licha ya ahadi za mara kwa mara za serikali kudhibiti eneo hilo, lakini kila nyakati za mvua mambo ni yale yale. Bashungwa aeleza sababu ujenzi wa daraja la juu kusausa. Mcherengwa awashukia vigogo TAMISEMI. Arusha hali tete, mafuriko yakiwa watano na kuharibu miundombinu ya barabara. Masuala ya mafuriko katika nchi ya Kenya na vile nchi ya Tanzania. Kwingineko, vigogo Chadema wapanga mkakati, Makonda awataja. Majaliwa taasisi zilipe madeni ya vyombo vya habari. Pale chini katika gazeti hili, kauli ya RC ushindi wa DK Tulia yazua mjadala. Dar es Salaam, kauli ya mkuu wa mkoa wa Mbeya Juma Homera inayoweza kutafsirika kama anamsafishia njia ya kuja kushinda ubunge. DK Tulia Ackson imeibua mjadala unaoshinikiza marekebisho ya kuwabana watendaji wa serikali kutumia madaraka yao kinyume na katiba. Na hivyo ndivyo vidokezo katika gazeti la Mwananchi. Turejee nchini Kenya katika masuala ya caricature.
I've seen the cartoon on page 16 of the Standard today, and yes, someone there suggesting that it will be wise for the government to invest in this simple tool. What tool is that? A lie detector, or otherwise known as a polygraph, and caricatures of what looks like Kenyan politicians running away from this proposal. None of them is willing to be subjected to a lie detector test.
And ironically, even the church is represented here.
Yes. All our leaders would not want to be subjected to a lie detector test, and that says a lot about that lot.
I presume this is Mama Mboga here with a proposal.
Stand there, Delia.
On the Daily Nation this morning, looks like Azimio principals there in an enclosed meeting trying to figure out Azimio 2027 strategy room, and it's a gamble. It looks like a very disorganized group of people who are trying to figure out probably whom their candidate will be come 2027. It's interesting because there's a very interesting headline I saw yesterday, the return of Raila. I'm like, where has he been? He's been around. Where is he returning from?
I think the best headline this morning is Aki Kenya Siha.
Aki Kenya Siha.
Yes. The kind of headlines we have and the kind of discussions we have.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. Something to note. Yes, today, both before the Senate and before the National Assembly, that State of the Nation address by the President that was delivered on Thursday last week will be up for debate in both houses. So that's something to look forward to. We'll be discussing that with my panelists after the break. You wanted to add something?
Oh, yes. And People Daily. Today, Stano decided to steer away from Kenya matters and goes all the way to the Israel and Palestine bit. And, well, Stano has a caricature of Santa Claus holding a pigeon, written peace, holding that olive branch there, and it's big. And Santa Claus says, I brought this special gift for Israel and Palestine. Please come forward if you can hear me. There you have it.
Okay.
And that wraps up our newspaper review.
Yes. Coming up after the break, our State of the Nation discussion with Dr. Wilfred Mutubwa, legal expert and political commentator, Ambassador Esther Warenga, President, Public Service Governance, PSG, and Boniface Wanjala Makoha, political analyst and politicians. Do stand by for that. And meanwhile, you can continue interacting with us through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Freddie Ndimuli. We now want to get down and discuss the big headlines of the day on State of the Nation. And to help us do this morning, we're privileged to have in studio Ambassador Esther Waringa, President, Public Service Governance, PSG. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Good to have you in studio.
Thank you very much.
And Boniface Wanjala Makoha, political analyst and politician. Karibu sana, TV 47.
Asante sana.
We're also expecting one more panelist to join us, but before that, of course, we're coming from a very big and important day, the National Tree Growing Day. The headlines are full of pictures with the president down on one knee planting trees. And it's what has been given prominence, I think, on the Standard, pages 4, 6, 7, 8, and 21, and on the Daily Nation, I think pages 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's not something we can ignore.
Yeah.
And probably just look at, we start from there and look at the success rate of this day. And a lot of people were making fun of it once the holiday was announced, and they were saying it's just another long weekend.
Yes.
But it would appear that the government and the president were quite ambitious. 150 million trees, those are the number. That was the number of trees that were to be planted yesterday. Do you think it was generally successful? How would you rate the performance yesterday from your own standpoint?
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. Here we are. And I must say, I think the day to an extent, it was successful. However, I thought that probably there was no need to stop Kenyans from going to work, especially with the high economic crisis. I think if the president employed wisdom and said maybe like an afternoon or 2 hours, that was enough for everybody to come out there from their jobs and plant a tree as you go home, or maybe on like Mashujaa Day, yeah, or like Jamhuri Day, he could maybe probably celebrate one of these holidays by planting trees, not stopping a whole economy. I think many people were really thrown out of their schedules, and they were wondering what to do, and especially with such a tough economy. However, I hail the president because of the progressive attempt to be able to mitigate climate change in the Republic of Kenya. I think this is a great move, and we hope that going forward, we will also be able to mitigate against high cost of such occurrences, because cabinet ministers were flying all over. Cabinet ministers were traveling long distances. Why should you do that when we have office of the president? We have the entire protocol, the provincial administration at the county, the constituency, and the ward level, who could have represented the president, other than sending cabinet ministers using choppers all over. That was a big hit to the already crippling economy. So proper management of such going forward is very necessary. However, we salute, I'm not sure that we realized the 150 million, 150...
They're yet to make an assessment of how many trees.
Okay, we are still waiting eagerly to hear. But going forward, I think the president can strategically make it like to happen on... If he could have told all of us, Mashujaa Day, let's all be heroes by planting a tree, that would have been more strategic than stopping a whole economy, a whole day to plant trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Makoha, on the necessity of having a national holiday specifically for growing trees, many people are questioning that. Do you question the same as well?
First of all, I must thank the president for initiating this move. And this is a new thing. So the government's involvement fully is highly welcome. Though expenditure issue is there, but now suppose we ask, if the ministers and the government officials did not attend such functions, again Kenyans could raise issues. When they attend, Kenyans raise issues. So I think we should be able to welcome some of these issues so that we are able to move forward. Because we realize what we've been in, drought, high cost of living due to lack of food and so on. So for my case, it is a success. And we cannot mix it with another holiday because there will be a conflict of interest. So to me, it's okay. Let's keep on keeping on so that we are able to secure our country, have enough food, and we reduce the cost of living.
There's an interesting headline on a highlight, not really a headline, a highlight on the front page of the Business Daily today. And it reads, IMF deal behind Ruto's forest cover drive. Because yes, just before the president headed to Makueni for the tree growing session, he had a meeting with IMF representatives at State House. And according to this story, this highlight, it is that meeting. That meeting had a lot to do with what is happening. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes with these things that maybe Kenyans are never privy to. Could there be that there's more than meets the eye, that probably even the necessity of a holiday was occasioned by some other need by the government?
That can be very unfortunate, actually. That can be very unfortunate if the government is driven by other circles out there that we don't know, at the detriment of the people of the Republic of Kenya and at the detriment of the same people who voted him in and are waiting him to deliver. When we call like a person the head of state and government, we expect somebody to be in charge of the state and government, away from any form of influence by any institution or by any individual or by any circumstance. A head of state must be able to make informed decisions that will be able to benefit the people at his locality, what I mean, in that particular jurisdiction that is the country, especially the Republic of Kenya. So when the president is pushed to an extent that he has to call off working, or workers, that they have to take a whole day break, and because of influence of other circles for other probably interest, I think that was not in the best interest of Kenyans, because actually Mama Mboga was like, tumenunua samaki, and because we didn't know that we would go into such a holiday, our fish is going bad, because it was kind of, okay, not really a good, like the way you would expect Jamhuri. We already know that Jamhuri is always there. And going forward, I think we must reduce on influence. One of the key reasons why Kenyans are going through hard economic times, remember, it is the 8% actually that was added to VAT in the fuel levies that is contributing to high cost of fuel. The president, I must say, is hands tied, as he said. He cannot be able to facilitate or set a system whereby we reduce on that 8% to be able to reduce the cost of fuel because of influence. And that is why I'm saying, and I repeat, that the head of state and government must be somebody who knows that beyond this point, I cannot be influenced by IMF, I cannot be influenced by any political body or any other government outside Kenya. But when it comes to a head of government, a head of a republic, becoming a puppet of international or global organizations, and you're not able to make your decisions. You tell Kenyans go for holiday within it was about 3 days notice. People had plans, and all of a sudden go for holiday. I think for the first time, we should have a very reliable government planning systems and strategies, so that let us run away and let us stop the external influence, which is now almost hitting Kenya. Almost 70% of what we are doing right now is external influence. And that is why locally, things are not working, because we cannot copy and paste. We cannot keep on borrowing ideas. Don't we have capacity as a government, in the internal government of the Republic of Kenya, to make decisions that are for the best interest of our people?
But Makoha, is it possible for the Kenyan government to ignore other forces out there? We get our donations from there, we get our loans from there. Even our ideas, most of them come from outside the country. Yes, we may want our president to think local, but he cannot avoid external influence, as Ambassador suggests.
Thank you so much. I think I beg to differ with the ambassador in that we are part of the large circle, the international circle. If we go the direction she's trying to put across, are we saying IMF is an amorphous organization? It's good to dig into whatever the meeting was all about before we start throwing stones. I don't think the president is that sick or very confused that he is able to be pushed or just sit with anybody. So far, Kenya has been in an awkward state. And it's because of the leaders that we've been all the way through. We are trying to be overcautious where there's no need. Because you cannot tell me, like the other time we had a problem with the demonstrations, we cried to the international community to come for us. But now, when the international community comes to us, we again say it's not in order. So personally, I think Kenyans, we should sober up, give this president an opportunity so that he's able to do whatever that he's supposed to do.
Okay.
I remember he has faced a lot of hurdles, even before settling in office, before creating the cabinet, before even coming up with his own budget, a lot of pressure. When a lot of misappropriation had undergone through before. How can an MCA, tell me, be given 2 million for free from whose pocket? KEMSA thing. So many things.
Okay.
So some of these things are, I think we should give the president
Fred, I
time.
must respond to
Yes,
that very
please, go
quickly
ahead.
before we exit that topic, because it's very important that we are not saying that International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the UN, and other international development agencies must not be part of development agenda of the Republic of Kenya. No. What we are saying, we have to strike a balance. We don't have to go 80% influenced by international agencies. We also have a right to be able to think and be able to plan and implement development interventions customized and according and guided by our own internal systems in the Republic of Kenya.
And allow me to introduce Dr. Wilfred Mutubwa to this panel. Dr. Mutubwa is a legal expert and political commentator, also a gentleman who understands matters international relations. And it's very curious that we are looking at that particular issue in relation to that holiday, the holiday we had yesterday, the National Tree Growing Holiday. There's an interesting headline here on the business, a highlight on the front page of the Business Daily. You don't have that copy there. And it says that an IMF deal was behind Ruto's forest cover drive. Now, because just before the president headed to Makueni, he had a meeting with the representatives from the IMF, and it is said that that meeting had a lot to do with the ongoing tree planting drive, hence the holiday that we got yesterday. And the debate is on whether or not that holiday was really necessary, and whether or not external influence gave us a holiday as Kenyans.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, first of all, for inviting me. I think the beginning point is to say Kenya is not an island. We exist within an international community that exerts pressure, whether it is direct or indirect. You cannot avoid it. But even more importantly, coming to your question directly, whether or not the holiday was deserved. The people of Kenya have a constitution, they have statutes, and the statutes and the constitution then give the powers to the government to determine when a holiday will be given. In my own assessment, I have listened to the president right from day one, and he has been very keen on reforestation as part of his government's agenda. Whether it was convenient to have this holiday yesterday or to have it next year is a question that is neither here nor there. He has crafted himself and his government as a climate-sensitive government, as a government that is taking head-on issues of climate change globally, and he has been recognized for that. So I think it is part of his theme, it is part of the government's approach to environmental issues. Yesterday's holiday, going by the headline you have spoken about, if indeed it was the IMF that had pushed for this holiday or a consideration for the holiday, you must look at the objective that was achieved by the holiday. My own view, I have seen hundreds, perhaps thousands of pictures people posting about planting trees, and they're generally excited. This is something that has not happened in this country since the 1980s. Sometimes as Kenyans, we must be fair to each other. Where credit is deserved, you give credit. The government has focused on the environment, and we are saying that we have a problem of global warming. It's across the world. We must do something in our own backyard. My own thinking is that this holiday was crafted to conveniently meet 3 objectives. Tree planting, number 1. It could be that there is an effort to show the international community that we are keen on environmental issues, but also just to join our Hindu friends and fraternity in Diwali without saying it, so that we have a holiday for Diwali without saying as much, because you do not want every other religious sect to now demand a holiday. But the point is this: tree planting is good. It is positive. Whether it is influenced by other people or not, remember, many things we do are influenced by other people. Even the Christmas holiday is not Kenyan. Even the Easter holiday is not Kenyan. These are things we have learned as we go along. Easter holiday are things that have come about 100 years ago in this country. So let's not pretend and say that we have original ideas. There are no original ideas in governance. The ideas you have are the ideas borrowed from elsewhere. When you say you want to build a railway, that's not an original idea. It is something you see somewhere else. You see railways in cities which work, and you come and build. Building a road is not an original idea. So this idea that we must come up with original ideas is misplaced. Ask whether the idea is good, whether it is timely, whether it has worked, and perhaps the discussion should be, who is it that is funding the tree planting? That perhaps is a better question.
There is an issue of funding. Ambassador, you want to add something?
Yes, I want to add something before we get to the issue of funding, that probably going forward, I hail what my colleague is saying. It is very important to plant trees. In itself is a very good and progressive agenda and ideology. However, it's good to be strategic when we talk of like a full holiday, a full day to plant trees. I don't think even the president himself took the whole day to plant trees. He finished and then he went to a place where in Ukambani, where he addressed the people. So what am I saying? For us to be strategic on time, on management of resources, on economic sensitivity, we have to factor such. Like, for example, I would have felt a better and a greater hero, equally to any other Kenyans, if this was on Heroes Day. That be a hero, plant a tree. I'm telling you, from the child who is born that day, to a motor rider, to everybody, to the head of state. Everybody a hero by planting trees. And then he can tell us, the more you plant, the more you become a hero. I would do 10 trees while others are doing 1. So let's be strategic, let's be more vocal, and going forward, I think next year, Heroes Day, let's all plant trees, other than taking a whole working day.
When we're discussing matters climate change, climate action, and climate intervention, there's a lot of talk about money that's supposed to come our way. And of course, if money is to come our way, we're talking about organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, and other donors. Don't you think that probably that is what we are not talking about, that is a underlying discussion, that yes, there's money to be gained, there's money, there's funding towards this kind of effort? Bwana Makoha.
Oh, personally, I think focus should not be on the money or anything else. Focus should be on what are we doing and how beneficial is it for us. Money come and go, but if we plant trees, it is for posterity.
Whether or not there's money.
Whether there is money or not. And I've had some colleagues or some leaders saying or complaining that so much money has been spent. How do you work without using money? And as a leader in Kenya, using your vehicle and so on, you must fuel it. We don't expect our leaders to go on foot to plant trees. So personally, when we have an issue, let's focus on that issue. But if we bring in so many issues, we become off record. So I request Kenyans, we Kenyans, not to see the government or leaders in government as people from another country. because others say the president and his people are doing this, Kenyans are doing this. He's also Kenyan. We are also Kenyans. But if we encourage a forum like this, of leaders sitting together and brainstorming, coming up with an issue, it is more constructive.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And for the first time, we have a new avenue of getting this money from outside. The president has come up with, this is something we can actually laud the president for. As you said, give credit where it's due. The fact that issues environment have not really generated that kind of funding towards Kenya as much as we anticipate now that they will do. Don't you think that probably this is one thing that the president should pat himself on the back?
Let me say this. Let me begin by what my colleagues were addressing. There is a general fallacy, a fallacious argument that when you have a holiday, then the economy stops. Let Kenyans know that in other countries, people take carnivals and festivals for a whole month, a whole week to celebrate New Year's. And there is a lot of economic activity. Holidays are also opportunities for people to spend time and money with their families. Government and life is not just about going to work. Sometimes it is also about making sure that you have generated income or generated money at the local level. Family time is also very important because one of the most important elements of the state is the family unit. But coming to your question directly, carbon credits and the money that it attracts, particularly to the countries that do not pollute the world, are vis-a-vis the ones which have polluted the ozone and paying for it, is another avenue for huge investment, particularly in developing worlds like ours. We are not a polluting state. Generally speaking, we are a state that when you look at our output in terms of pollution, particularly industrial pollution, we are a carbon credit country. And what the president has said, and when he went to Saudi Arabia, he was very clear that, look, we are looking to tap into our resources, including our contribution to the maintenance of a clean environment internationally. And the carbon credits are being paid in the billions. Multinationals, oil companies are now supposed to pay trillions of dollars. What is wrong in enhancing our capacity by investing in the planting of trees so that in another 10, 15 years, our carbon credits and our earnings from that particular aspect is perhaps 1 trillion shillings? What is difficult about that? You see, the problem is the traditional sense of thinking by people, that people must wake up, go and construct a road, a building, so that we see that the country is actually developing. Even the planting of trees is development. The fact that you take about 2 or 3 hours to plant a tree does not mean the day is wasted. I mean, look, you plant trees, you go, sit with your family, enjoy yourself. For those in the city, can go to the mall, spend some money there. So economic activity was vibrant yesterday, perhaps even more vibrant than today. Some Kenyans will tell you, the people who go to work will tell you they spent more money yesterday than they will spend today. That is the kind of economics we are talking about. But environmental matters are now at the core of everything, including development. You're not going to build up a building today without an environmental license and environmental impact assessment report. The point is this, that a country that takes environment seriously is a country that is likely to reap in the future. Okay. Yes.
Ambassador, before we go on a break here.
Yes, very well. I would like to talk briefly about climate financing because I think Kenya has been hailed as one of the continental drivers of climate change mitigation. And recently during the Africa Climate Change Summit that was held at KICC in Nairobi, multinational and development agencies came up very strongly. The European Union, the UK, the US, I think we saw them coming strongly to support the climate change mitigation initiatives in the Republic of Kenya. And I want to believe that these are some of the funds that are now coming through to actualize this. But I remember, because I was one of the participants in the climate change conference, one of the recommendations was, how do we have then this money trickle down to the grassroots? So away from government initiating it up there, What about the CBOs, the civil society, that are working towards climate change mitigation at the grassroots? So probably, as we talk this morning, we would like to call upon His Excellency, as much as he did what he did on, yesterday, still, with the same funding, he must consider the NGOs, the CBOs, that we said during the African Climate Change Summit, that must be able to be tasked with the responsibility of reaching out to the Wanjikos, to the lowest jurisdiction areas that at the world level, to be able to implement the climate change mitigation measures. Because at the end of the day, look at it, it was a one-off event. What about sustainability? What about consistency? Who is gonna do that? Doesn't mean that we did yesterday, which was good. Thank to God that it is rainy season. What about sustainability? What about follow-up?
Or holidays?
Absolutely. Okay, no. I'm not sure we need any more holidays.
Yeah.
But as I said, the president can be very strategic. We can even do it 3 times a year, but not on holidays as such. He can even proclaim like one Saturday. This Saturday, Kenyans, let's be heroes, let's plant trees. And I must repeat that everyone would like to be a hero of environment like Wangari Maathai. So let him not really schedule a whole day. He did it yesterday, probably to launch it, fine. But going forward, let's please marry it with another.
You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV47. We continue the conversations that matter to Kenyans. You can also interact with us on our social media pages, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya. When we come back after the break, we'll be looking at matters, fuel prices, and the whole handling of petroleum products, because it's on all our dailies this morning. That after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue with this discussion with my panelists this morning, Boniface Wanjala Makoha, political analyst and politician, Ambassador Esther Waringa, President, Public Service Governance, and Dr. Wilfred Mutubwa, legal expert and political commentator. I want us to move now to the discussion that's featuring as a main headline on most of the dailies this morning, and it has to do with that fuel consignment that arrived at the port of Mombasa, and which is now the subject of a probe with allegations of attempted theft. Incidentally, today being the 14th of November, we expect that the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, will be giving the revised fuel prices for the next 1 month. Now, issues to do with fuel have been, and the price of fuel, have been the biggest talking point in recent weeks. Kenyans are feeling the pinch. There's what the government has decided to do on this matter, which is the government-to-government deal, and that reminds me that the other headline linked to this is on the Business Daily. No, rather on the East African. Spat over oil tests Museveni-Ruto ties, and this is the latest round petrol supply, which is likely to drive Ruto's mentor further away as Uganda finds new trading partners and Kenya looks elsewhere. Now, when we see such stories and such headlines, intrigues behind 17 billion shilling mystery petrol, there's a businesswoman who's already missing. Claims of forgery on the Daily Nation. Forgery claim in 17 billion shilling fuel saga. And we talk about government-to-government deal. Questions do arise about how this government is handling this entire issue about importation of oil to the country. It's already causing trouble with Uganda. And let's start from there, Bwana Makoha. Do you feel that this administration has handled the issue of fuel in the best way possible, given the kind of headlines we are seeing and what Kenyans are feeling generally?
Thank you so much. From my understanding, actually some of these things, we shouldn't be talking about them at this age, because things like forgery is associated to me to corruption. And if the government means what they say, and they've tried to say something, let them come clean. Because some of these issues are raised, but all of a sudden they just disappear like that. So yet money is lost and people are also disappearing. So personally, I would like the government to come clean and ensure that we as Kenyans, we head the right direction. Because we are fast moving from the third world country and we're also competing with the first world country. So on the issue of fuel, personally I can see we have embraced an alternative source. There is solar and there is gas. So some cars are using now gas, others are using solar. So with the time, the cost of oil and so on, it will have a competitor because they've been enjoying the monopoly, and that monopoly is slowly going down with the time.
Okay.
So I believe that we just have to change direction.
Dr. Mutubwa, such headlines are symptomatic of a bigger problem, a bigger underlying problem, and it's how the government has chosen to handle this issue of oil importation to the country. In Kenya, we're feeling the pinch, and we're seeing that we're paying more for fuel than our neighbors are doing it. In Tanzania, even the central bank itself has admitted that international oil prices have gone down. But in Kenya, we're still not getting that benefit. We're already in trouble with Uganda because of the method we've chosen to get our oil, to import our oil. Now we're seeing this kind of intrigues where a consignment of oil in the high seas, there are attempts to steal it here, or rather claims that some people are trying to steal it. When there's a government-to-government deal, one would expect some sense of hygiene in such kind of business dealings? Why are we seeing all this muddying?
Thank you, Fred. You know, the problem with our oil importation structure, so to speak, or framework, is that you know this government has attempted a new approach. The previous approach was a competitive approach where one of the oil marketers would be allowed to bring the oil for some period and then sell it to the others. And the challenge was that now we had gotten to a point where some well-connected oil marketers were now more or less dominating the market, monopolizing the market. Because, as you know, business and politics go hand in hand. So when the new government came, the government of President Ruto, the attempt was to break that monopoly and introduce a more transparent approach to purchasing oil. Now, the government-to-government approach, when you look at our procurement law, is one of the ways of procuring products without going through the procurement laws. So it's a way of circumventing a competitive process. And the idea was that if you are going to the government of Saudi Arabia, for instance, or the UAE, or one of the OPEC countries, and you buy government to government, you are likely to get it at a better rate. You are likely to guarantee yourself and cut out the middlemen and brokers. Because the problem here is a problem of brokers. But as you can see, the brokers are still thinking, and they're thinking hard. So the idea is that the brokers now want to come midstream to also deal with the government-to-government approach. One would wonder why we have private persons involved in a government-to-government deal. That is the essence of the question. The oil has docked in Mombasa. The value of the oil is known. The ship is known. It is not difficult to know who the owner of the property is. There is some effort, in my view, looking at the facts as they are, to try and introduce middlemen in a government-to-government arrangement, which will now be a situation where there will be a markup in the oil, and still bring back the old problem of brokers and people who intermeddle to make sure that oil is expensive. And that is really the problem that the Ugandans have with us, is that, look, we do not have a consistent policy on how we are going to deal with oil. We seem to like the issue of brokerage. We are a country that really loves brokers. Whether it is in land, whether it is in employment in the army, we believe that somebody must intercede. Maybe it has something to do with our Christian values. Some intercession. Somebody must speak for you. You don't just believe that you can go somewhere and get a service. You will be asked, whom are you talking through? Or who is talking to? So this is the same thing that is happening in this deal. And I think what is happening here is that the people who had fronted this lady are abandoning her like a hot potato, because they have discovered that perhaps the deal is not going as they had imagined. But the common man then suffers, because the idea here, and I think it was well-meaning by government, was to make sure that oil is consistently brought. We have some credit period because we are dealing with another sovereign government. We are given some time to pay, and we get it on the cheap. But because we are so used to problems, somebody thinks that even if you brought the oil and it exchanged hands in Kilindini in Mombasa, so that the government-to-government ends in Mombasa, and by the time it's hitting the pump, a broker's fee has been introduced, somebody thinks Kenyans will still bear that burden, and they have no problem bearing that burden. And I think this is the time we need to see leadership in the Ministry of Energy. This is the time I need to see the minister speak more authoritatively than he did yesterday. If somebody is trying to play about with Kenyans' money, 17 billion shillings is not pocket change. I mean, somebody by now should be resting somewhere in courts waiting to be charged, if at all this is true. Whether this disappearance of a lady is orchestrated, is dramatic, whether it is just some drama that is meant to buy time and have things move on, because Kenyans will be told, you know, accept and move on. I don't think that is the case. An example should be made out of this, so that we know whether we have a government-to-government deal or whether we should go back to purchasing oil on the competitive market and get the advantages that come with competition.
Because the promise was that the government-to-government deal would have some benefit for Kenyans. You mentioned the issue of the taxation levied and the fact that this administration is never short of excuses of why one or two things have not worked. With this kind of headlines, this could also be another excuse of why we cannot enjoy the benefits. Today we expect EPRA to give us new pricing. Do you, for example, expect any kind of benefit in terms of reduced fuel prices today?
Actually, I'm eagerly waiting for that because looking at the regional oil prices from Uganda, Tanzania, and the region, the oil prices are coming down. What about Kenya, the ever controversial country? And I think it's a high time that we bring these controversies to an end. And if President Ruto would like to leave a legacy in his administration, the best thing he can do is to leave a legacy, especially on wiping out corruption. And I must say that this oil deal is another scandal in waiting, because as my brother has just put it, the government is running away from competitive bidding and transparency, accountability, and responsibility on oil matters in the Republic of Kenya. Because when we see nations like Uganda pulling out, when we see like Tanzania stabilizing their policies on oil, we question ourselves as a country. What's happening that when other countries are moving towards stabilization of their economies, especially through oil, ours, it's scandals after scandal after scandal, especially in the energy sector, the sector that is today making investors to pour out of the country, the sector that today is making companies and manufacturers to close down. Actually, as the president is saying about talking about job creation, the same energy sector is sending people home because manufacturers and investors cannot continue with the kind of high inflation rate in this country. So I think this G2G, if ever Anti-Corruption Commission was to probably prove their competency, is to first of all sit and look into this saga, because the way it is appearing to be, it's going to be a big scandal in this country. Yes. So we call upon EACC, tafadhali, as it is right now making the headlines. Where are you? Because we have mandated you. The exchequer is paying you out of the taxpayers' money. So we really need to see the mandate of the EACC coming out clearly by telling Kenyans what is happening with this forgery claim of the 7 billion fuel saga.
But Makoha, every time we see this kind of government intervention, even in the importation of maize, whenever we have this duty-free importation of maize, now we're seeing this government-to-government deal. There's always a lot of individual interests. Do you agree that probably any government intervention is more prone to corruption and meddling as opposed to leaving it to the market forces?
Thank you so much. I think you will agree with me that corruption is a systemic problem in this country. And getting rid of it should start with you and me. You find that most of these government officials are the ones doing all these deals. Talk of milk, talk of sugar, and so on. They cause unnecessary loss so that they import these products and sell them to the common mwananchi. You find there's a common trader here. There's a genuine trader. What I mean is a genuine trader. He comes up with an issue or brings a product like milk. But the government officials are the ones producing more milk, subdue this trader. At the end of the day, we run loss of some of these products. So I think it should start from the top down. Once the top is clear, I believe we'll be somewhere.
Okay.
For instance, the government of Rwanda decided to have a cleaning day. Even the president comes and clean. He set a standard. So let him start and clean every corruption, every brokers in between, so that we have a genuine avenue.
Okay.
Yes.
G2G scandal in the making?
It looks bad, and the government has survived a year without a major scandal so far. This one looks like a scandal in the making, depending on how the government reacts to it. I still want to give the government the benefit of the doubt, because G2G was a good idea. In fact, I think at first it was meant to stabilize the prices. Although we feared that the prices would go beyond 200, we are now at 220 for super. The idea and what was sold to us as G2G was that in the long term it would be a good thing, because it will make sure that we have oil at a good price and we are able to now compete properly with our neighbors. But unfortunately, what creeps in is the brokerage mindset, and the benefit that we were about to draw from that arrangement is what some of these brokers, some of these elements, these corrupt elements want to plug into, so that you don't really feel the difference, and the difference is taken by some people. How the president reacts to this will mark a beginning for his legacy on corruption. It is now his second year. Scandals like this stick, whether you explain them away or not, is something that we'll never get out of. And I think what is important is the way the reaction and the speed with which the reaction comes. It is important that Kenyans are explained to this G2G oil plan properly. Secondly, it is important that if there is any whiff of corruption around this matter, it must be nipped as quickly as possible. That will bring credibility to the market. As we said, you see, the problem with Kenya is the energy sector seems to be on an autopilot, or seems to be so mired in so much corruption and confusion that the common man has really lost hope that power, whether it is electricity, whether you're talking about oil, whether you're talking about cooking gas, nobody quite seems to know how these things are priced properly. And the simpler the explanation, the clearer it is, the better for everybody. I actually had hoped that the president would be able to explain in his State of the Nation address in very simple terms what his plan is with electricity, with oil and gas, and explain to Kenyans where he got to with his renewable energy push. Because when the climate summit was here, he was riding in an electric car. Soon thereafter, he's back to his car. His cabinet is back to flying helicopters. I thought that was a time for him to show leadership and say, from Monday to Friday, if you're going to office as ministers, you'll use electric cars. We're going to get electric buses into Nairobi. At least make some move, beyond the show that you put for visitors when they come. Have some commitment to what you're saying. And if you know you can't live with it, just forget about it. Don't do it. Don't even start, because you will be judged by your own standards. This G2G oil importation, 17 billion, is likely to unearth many other things. As we know in this country, you begin by highlighting this, then in weeks you will see that there is
blows up into
so many other things that have been happening behind the scenes that we were not able to see. And I think the way the government decisively deals with this, and I must say that when I saw the minister brushing aside this issue very casually, I do not think that gives it the importance, because one scandal after the other diminishes. Already Kenyans are so demotivated by the cost of living. Mm-hmm. A reduction today by EPRA, even by a shilling, will be welcome.
Yes.
If today EPRA increases the oil price, the pump prices, today, Kenyans will remember this G2G deal.
We're already predicting the headlines tomorrow.
Yes.
Because chances are, and a number of cabinet secretaries have said, the prices are going up.
Oh, yeah.
We do not expect any reduction.
We had it from
But when we are reading such headlines, and it's clear there's a lot of confusion, we don't know what works where, what is causing what.
Correct.
People will start joining the dots, that there's something fishy happening. This issue of fuel could end up being the Waterloo for President Ruto. He appears confident that it may be pain now, but later on he'll be able to recover. But on such issues that are at the core of production and the economy, this could become a problem for him in a year or two to come.
Not even a year or two to come, this year. Because remember that the president, during his State of Address speech, he never mentioned energy. Why? Because of this. because if he could have probably made a statement that is not clear, that would have landed him into problems. And remember, recently he said what? That his hands are tied. He cannot be able to take any action in regards to the cost of living that has been necessitated by cost of rise of fuel. If his hands are tied, what will Wajiko say? And he is the head of state and government. The president has options. One, he has an option to reduce the 16% from 16 to 8%. Because remember, this was a push by IMF to double the VAT to 16. Initially, it was 8. That's one option. Option 2, we have 9 fuel levies. Why don't we reduce? And this has been there over time. The president has the necessary platform or authority to be able to sit with the ERC, the Energy Regulatory Commission, and other energy players to see the possibility of reducing the 9 levies to about 4 or so, and that can see the reduction of fuel. Again, actually there are 3 subsidies. The president can do what President Uhuru did, but now he doesn't want to be heard like he's doing what Uhuru did. This is the biggest disadvantage of politics. Yeah? You want just to show that you are best in everything. You don't want to carry forward what another president did. And I think that's why we are coming up strongly to streamline governance in this country, because something is very wrong. We must be able to appreciate that a particular administration might have done better in a particular area. Like, for example, when the President Uhuru introduced the subsidy in fuel, he knew that Kenyans needed to be cautioned against the high cost of living through reduction of this. So President Ruto have been juggling around this and have not given us a strategic direction. So if the president does not sit back and try to probably come clear on this, it might cost him his seat, and we are ready to see the country move forward in terms of...
Do you think that the president is a little bit overconfident in his handling of this matter? He knows, and according to what he has said, even what he told the MPs, we will be popular at the right moment. We do not need to be popular right now. That kind of confidence, don't you think that it could be problematic, it could prove problematic to the president in a few months' time?
I think it is too early to judge or put him at a lower position, because based on whatever that he's tried to push, it's been a success. Now, we should not talk about 16% VAT thing, because that's now, to me, is water under the bridge. And I believe that before people come up with some of these issues, they have considered so many factors. And we are told that actually we are in a hole. So some of these measures are put in so that we become slowly self-sufficient. So when we talk about subsidies, he changed the model in that he now gave the farmers and the people of Kenya to do that. But the other one with President Uhuru he was giving these businessmen, the money was going in their pockets, a lot of money. So when he changed the model of subsidies, we are seeing, if it's food, we have a lot of food right now. So we should not just, to me it's too early to be negative. Let's give him, now he's on his second year. Let's wait until like August or so. Okay. Then judge him. Because if we say he's associated with the international communities, IMF and so on, it is a wrong thing. I don't think he's somebody who is also informed. Okay.
Talking about judging.
Allow me to respond to that quickly
yes.
before we move to the next point, that it is not too early. Kenyans are already feeling the heat of high cost of living. Didn't we see the demonstration recently? Why? As a result of high cost of living. So it is actually too late, because this should have actually been addressed early this year, not now. So we are already very late.
The state of the nation, when the president spoke about, and I can't fault him, in every regime, the first and second years are times to tell the public the truth, the hard truth. Usually, and I think the people judging the president's state of nation address as against his promises on the campaign trail are making one fundamental mistake. The president was not campaigning in the state of nation address. He was now giving you an account of where we stand. And giving you an account says he must be able to tell you where you are in deficit and where the difficulties are. I expect his State of the Nation address to progressively become hopeful as you go towards the election. By the time he's delivering his 2026 State of the Nation address, he will now be addressing voters. Today, he wants to create as much skepticism in you so that you know that whatever he has done between now and 2026 is almost a miracle. He will tell you that things are very bad and that it is so bad to come out of this hole. So that in 2026, he will tell you, I have come out of the hole.
That kind of confidence has
Now,
a potential of
it is a risk. It's a political risk, what he has taken. But the second thing I wanted to say about the subsidy versus subsidizing production versus consumption. One mistake that the president advisors do is to suggest to him that subsidizing oil and fuel is subsidizing consumption. It is not. It is actually subsidizing production because we do not produce oil. And therefore, we will always import oil for the foreseeable future. And therefore, if you're going to subsidize production as you have done in agriculture very successfully, you must subsidize oil because these two go hand in hand. You need a tractor to plow, you need people to move. If you subsidize fuel and subsidize production of food, you will have tried to ease the cost of living. And the problem here is that the president and his team is not willing to subsidize the price of fuel because it is an easy place to capture taxes. It is the easiest way to get taxes. You know, Fred, today, even if you switch off your lights in the house for 1 month, you will still pay at least 50% of your bill, simply because those are levies that are standing. The point is this: if the president really wants to help Mwananchi as he has done, let him replicate what he has done in agriculture, in oil. Go for G2G, but remove some taxes. Let Kenyans feel, even artificially, that the oil has come down, the fuel has come down. The cost of production, including manufacturing, will be boosted slightly, and that will create jobs and create some hope. Now, political leadership sometimes is about hope. There are many external factors that affect what we are today. But, political rhetoric is always about speaking to people's minds and hearts and encouraging people to wake up in the morning and continue doing the right thing because there is hope for tomorrow. Now, if you get ministers getting to the public podium and telling you fuel with 300 shillings and we will have nothing to do about it, and then they read in the paper that somebody is trying to forge and collect fuel which has been imported on G2G, what does a common Mwananchi think? He thinks that the government that he elected is taking him for a ride, and that he no longer matters in the matrix of the government. So I think the president must step in. As I've said, in the next 2 weeks maximum, how his government reacts to this story may just influence how some people view the government itself.
And speaking about State of the Nation, I'm looking at the order paper for both the National Assembly and the Senate today. And item number 10, debate on the President's address to Parliament pursuant to Standing Order 25-1. This is the National Assembly. This is the Senate. The thanks of the Senate be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered on the 9th. The Houses of Parliament will begin scrutinizing the President's address, the one he made on Thursday last week. But we've seen, and questions have been asked about the conduct of these same Houses of Parliament. They have been very instrumental in passing some of the government policies that people are now complaining about. Yet we saw that even MPs, when they went to State House, they pass motions in one laws on one hand, then they go to State House to complain on the other. They appear to have completely ceded ground to the executive. Do you think that their scrutiny of the President's State of the Nation address will serve any purpose?
Let's talk the truth. That any government in power, including the UDA government, would like to have majority in Parliament. and would like to have all government bills passed. What do they do in that regard? All members of parliament are bought, or most, allow me to use most of them, are bought. Unfortunately, when you are bought and you are on government side, rarely will you pass bills. I mean, rarely will you fail to pass bills that emanate from the executive. This is the worst crisis that we are going through as a country on matters governance. We are opening our eyes and our ears to listen to what Parliament is going to say, especially on one key economic driver, energy. Because when energy is not sorted, the economy will collapse. When energy is sorted, then the other key economic drivers will ride on energy. So, and remember that His Excellency the President, I don't know whether it is willingly or it was planned or what, he never talked anything to do with energy. I listened to him whole 100%, but he talked nothing to do with energy yet. It is one of the key economic drivers. So going forward, and again, as we anticipate to listen to these members of parliament, are they coming close? Probably, them being the legislative organ of government, even to advise the executive of what Wanjiku would expect on a State of the Nation address like the President did. Because what we expected more was a result-based State of the Nation address with tangible results of key economic drivers. We expected the President to tell us that, look, in energy, we have realized 1, 2, 3, 4, and with this backed up with statistics. What are the results within a given time frame? In agriculture, away from fertilizer. There are so many other influencers around the agriculture productivity that would influence growth and development and sustainability in agriculture. But when the President talks about fertilizer only, what about that tractor farmer who is fueling his tractor to go probably and do farming in his farmyard, and he cannot afford the cost of fuel? So let us not be told that we have succeeded in agriculture and now we have the food production taken care of because we reduced the cost of fertilizer from 7.5 to 2.5. No, let us look at the wholesome all-rounded economic interventions within a given space. If it is another one, industrialization, we would like to see, because we have heard of the former CS trade launching this
industrialization.
Yes, in every county. What are we talking about in terms of sustainability? Is it another political game and now it has ended, it has gone down the water? I mean, under the table, or what are we expecting? And we expected also the head of state to come out clearly that this is why we have launched. Is it more than that now? How many were they launched? And what purpose are they helping us realize? And actually, as much as they launch such economic, what did you call them? The
industrial parks.
Yes, the industrial parks. What about the cost of energy of running the industrial parks? Okay. So, who is advising the President on matters economic solutions for this country? We are missing it, right? And if anyone was to advise His Excellency the President, he should take time out of his busy schedule to sort the oil menace.
A lot of questions, Bwana Makoha, should be conduct and the role of Parliament in all these discussions, especially in a government-to-government deal when the questions are arising and we see some attempts at games being played with the whole system. That is where Parliament comes in. We've seen how this Parliament has conducted, the 13th Parliament has conducted itself so far. Working at the behest of the executive and lacking in independence. Beyond uploading the President's address, do you expect that these houses will question even the fact that the President failed to address issues of energy?
Now, I think the Parliament, the executive, and the judiciary, these are bodies which are interlinked together in a way. And therefore, should one have some conflict with the other, a lot of problem will be felt. And that's why most of these issues or policies are being passed by Parliament, and the executive is also eager to ensure that the same policies are passed. To me, we are talking about energy. The president has talked about energy indirectly. Energy does not mean fuel alone. When he encourages people to use electric vehicles, electric boda-bodas, that is an alternative way of also using energy. And when I work in Kenya right now, you find that most companies are having solar panels on top, which means they're using solar energy. So this is just focused at taming the fuel menace, because we cannot beat up the world fuel providers and so on. Mm-hmm. But if we embrace an alternative source of energy, definitely we'll be able to tame them and we'll bring them on the table and talk. Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about tax, actually tax is a big problem. To me, the president and his government should think seriously about it, because you cannot tax Kenyans left, right, and center. You cannot move from 50 shillings to 1,000 shillings or 200 shillings to 2,000 shillings. That's serious. Mm-hmm. So, whereas he has advisors, but I believe he is also sober and he'll be able to handle some of these issues, okay, so that we're able to
Yet Parliament has been in existence with all these things happening. The issues of taxation have to pass through Parliament. We are seeing that they've been reduced to an applauding machine. Just saying, well done, Mr. President. President Ruto appears to be having both his say and his way. This time round, especially on a government-to-government deal, that is where, as opposed to private companies importing oil, this is where the Parliament should be coming in and questioning what is happening. Do you think they're doing what they should be doing?
You know, Fred, Parliament is supposed to oversight. It's supposed to represent and legislate. Now remember, Parliament is not an appendage of the executive. It should keep the president awake at night to think about what Parliament will say. A good administration, and perhaps that is why, with all the difficulties in his government, President Kibaki was able to do a good job, because he had a very hostile Parliament. And the hostility in the Parliament actually may have helped us. Because you see, Fred, look at it this way. Your best ally in Parliament is not the one who sings your praises. Because if you don't read the mood on the ground, Parliament can also send you to the wrong direction and send you home. Mm-hmm. Sometimes even in America, where we have very, very heated parliamentary sessions, there is something called bipartisan approach, where matters are critical for the existence of the state, like this one on oil. When we have a national blackout, I do not think that American legislators would side with Biden just because the power blackout is because...
Even those on his party.
That would be a serious issue where the minister has to go home. And it is because Parliament plays its watchdog role. The problem with our Parliament is that it is too keen to make sure that it is aligned with the president, including the opposition. Everyone wants to be seen to catch the president's eye. And that is not your job. Remember, Parliament is not elected by the president or appointed. You have a constituency. If you're the member of Parliament for Kiambu Town, those people require you to articulate their position. They require you to put government on toes. When you go and you now ask, what is the president's view? And we are going to take the president's position. What you're going to see for the next 2 weeks in the Houses of Parliament are praises from one side and some criticism from a few. It becomes a tradition just to go through the motions, because there is really nothing much that will come out of the debate on the president's speech. You wanted people to censor some parts of that speech. You wanted people to disagree and bring forward arguments against some of the pronouncements the president has made, challenge the policies of government, including from his own side of the coalition of the House of Parliament. Now, unfortunately, you have a situation where our parliamentarians do not understand their role. And when you begin criticizing the president, you're told, look, you're not towing the line. We're going to remove you from committees. We're going to punish you in this or the other way. We're going to make sure that you suffer certain problems or even lose your seat. That should never happen in a complete democracy. The president should be able, And I was happy listening to the president. I heard him saying he has spoken to certain Kenyans. He spoke to a person who has a tuk-tuk, He did not mention even once that he spoke to anyone who disagreed with him. Yeah?
Everyone agreed with
Yeah, because you need to tell people that when I also called somebody in Isiolo, he told me, Mr. President, your tax regime is completely flawed in this particular sense. And I assured him that I am doing X, Y, Z. The president only quoted the people whom supposedly he called and were in agreement with his policies and were praising his policies. The people who praise you are not important to you. The people who criticize you are important to you. Those are the people you need to speak to. Those are the people you need to persuade. Okay. If you are in politics and you are taking all your time to listen and speak to people who agree with you, then you are not doing anything. The president needs to talk to people who disagree with him, even those who disagree with him vehemently. We have come a long way that the president can make a telephone call to a tuk-tuk driver and direct a minister to talk to him. Similarly, if there is somebody who feels very strongly that, look, you have given us subsidy in fertilizer, food is going to become cheaper, but these same people who produce food are going to pay more school fees next term because the fees has gone up. These same people have children in university, there is no longer free university education. Kenyans have no problem paying taxes. And I want to say this, many Kenyans, when you speak to them, have no problem. But if we knew that all our children can go to public schools and get good education, if we knew that all our roads would be paved, teachers, policemen, everybody will get a good salary, we would have no problem paying 16% on fuel, we would have no problem paying 35% in income tax, because we know that the government is using those taxes to do the right thing. But when you hear that government taxes are now going to a saga, somebody who is just coming to pretend to have imported oil, you get concerned because you sweat. I was looking at many pay slips today. You are now talking about people who are earning less than 50% of their pay slip. And this is what makes people very annoyed to see that even the little that I am keeping is still going to be taken away, not only at the taxes, but also on the pump. So the point here is this, that as you go along, you want to encourage your members of parliament to play their oversight role as president. You want to tell them, tell me the truth. Now at least, before we get to the election. Number two, tax Kenyans, but let Kenyans also get an account of their taxations. If Kenyans felt that the president, forget about the other people, if Kenyans felt that the president is really protecting their tax shillings, they would give them the mandate to tax them. And they would be very happy to be taxed. Today, the problem is not the taxation really, but many people are not feeling the taxes. Many people are feeling that these taxes are going in the wrong places. And I think in the State of the Nation address, Kenyans also wanted to hear some assurance from the person they have put in charge of their public affairs, that he has done something in the last 1 year. There may be other things you can't do in 1 year, but the things you can do include the fact that you can rein in on loopholes in tax collection and the use of the taxes. So those are not things you can be given time. You know, when people say, let's give him time, is he giving you time to collect taxes from you? He collected from day one.
Yes.
He did not give you any time. So on the account for what he has collected, there is no time given.
No time.
But for the long-term projects, we may very well agree that, okay, let's see how far it can go. But let me tell you, Fred, it is not enough to reduce the price of food and tell people that everything else is going to go up. You're going to pay for more school fees, you're going to pay levies, even for an ID card, you're going to pay, even for a search on land, you're going to pay 2,000 shillings.
Okay.
Yeah?
Let's talk about the quality of debate we expect. This debate, at least if for nothing else, it should be able to benefit the common mwananchi in as far as understanding and breaking down what the president said in his State of the Nation address. But given the fact of what we've just discussed and the conduct of these members of parliament, it is very unlikely that Kenyans are going to benefit from this kind of debate because it will just be a session to applaud what the president has said. We should be able to start questioning the performance of this parliament because yes, we are criticizing the executive and the president, but we're not doing as much in questioning what this parliament should be doing.
This is it. Actually, we look forward to the next scorecard delivery scorecard of parliamentarians, how will it be? Because I think what parliamentarians have been doing for the last 1 year, they have been singing the song of the executive. And even now, they will not go short of crapping for the executive for the State of the Nation address. But the question is, what about Wanjiku? We want to remind that the members of parliament, as they move now to discuss this debate, that they are representatives of the people. They are not representatives of Dr. William Ruto or the executive arm of government of the Republic of Kenya. And if they are representative of the people, let's see them coming out clearly on matters taxation, on matters energy, on matters agriculture, representing the real situation down there. What is ailing Wanjiku today? What will bring the cost of living down to be able to benefit Wanjiku? This is the debate that we expect to hear in Parliament. But unfortunately, many of them will sing the song of their president, which will be very, very unfortunate. So we expect, and because sometimes the public service governors, we like oversighting and actually talking the truth, that parliamentarians, remember that you are representatives of the people. And remember, it's the voters who gave you the power to sit in that parliament. Can you, for once, take a paradigm shift and represent the people as you discuss what the head of state presented? And I want to believe that, actually, that Parliament, through this debate, can be able to be an advisory unit to be the executive in terms of now, as the president starts his second year of service. Whatever is gonna emanate from Parliament this time can be able to inform the executive, can be able to be an advisory to the executive, and especially if they open up in black and white, debate on energy, debate on taxation, although debate on energy was never in the president's speech, but the parliament...
The fact that the president failed to address that should be taken into account.
Absolutely.
By parliamentarians.
We wait to hear and we task them. And you members of parliament, we are really waiting and closely. Many bodies from public service governance, which I chair, and other governance bodies are watching closely and listening closely to what will be coming from the floor of the House. I'm very much disappointed sometimes when I look at the impeachment system of these members of parliament, that even if they don't deliver, they'll still stay in that parliament forever. And that is why probably some of us need to, some of the Kenyans need to think of our systems of governance. Because like a CEO of a given corporate agency, if somebody is not delivering, you give them first warning, second warning, third warning, send them home. But for parliamentarians, they'll continue to be there, drawing from the exchequer, and
There's
we are
a recall
coming.
clause that is never activated.
Come on, we are coming to change over the systems of governance.
This
yes.
afternoon,
and
both the Senate and the National Assembly will be scrutinizing the address made by President William Ruto and his State of the Nation address on Thursday last week to a joint sitting of the Houses. And yes, we are waiting to see what that debate will be like. As we come to the end, I'll give you each an opportunity to make your final remarks, starting with you, Bwana Makoha.
Thank you so much. Personally, I'd like to call our parliamentarians to stop focusing on political affiliation, because this is what is killing Kenyans. Let them say we are all Kenyans, we are all leaders for this country. Others, if they go the party way, nothing much is going to be achieved. That's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Dr. Mutubwa.
I think the president's scorecard, 1 year after doing the job, paints a mixed picture. He has done well in some areas. Some areas are work in progress. He has done well in terms of international relations. I have not clearly seen him speak about a specific approach to international relations. He has not taken a specific stance. Maybe the non-aligned stance would be good for him. There may be some missteps here and there. Domestically, the biggest elephant in the room is the cost of living. The sooner his government starts addressing that, the better. The energy sector seems to be crying out for serious reform. Both the power utility company and the oil and how we deal with gas is a big problem. On the area of environment, I think the government has done well. He has projected himself as an environmental friendly government. But there are many things which still many Kenyans struggle with. The very same problems he started with, unemployment, is one of the biggest problems in this country. As I said, the cost of living is another one. And I think going forward, I expect that parliamentarians will not only discuss the speech, but will also be able to offer alternatives. What I have also seen lacking from the opposition are credible alternatives. Because all through government, people are always looking out for the alternative. And this is a great opportunity, particularly when government is grappling with some of these difficulties, for the opposition to come up with the alternatives that would make people start seriously thinking about them. Not just to say we are waiting for so-and-so to be given an opportunity, we have supported you 10 years, we have supported. That is not what Kenyans are waiting for. What Kenyans are waiting for are credible alternatives. In fact, the average Kenyan on the street is feeling helpless. Because when you look at government, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. When you look at the alternative, it doesn't seem to offer anything much. So we are left in a situation where we are almost stranded and on our own. And I think the members of parliament that we have sent to the House, when matters of the nature of the president's address to the nation on matters economy are put to you, speak your mind and speak your heart. Don't just speak the party colors.
Okay. Thank you. You get to wrap it up for us, Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you very much. Your Excellency, the President, yesterday you crossed a whole economy because of the energy in you to transform the environmental sector and specifically climate change investigation. With the same energy, move now and sort out the mess in energy. Energy is the central and is the pivot under which Kenya's productivity is anchored. If you don't sort energy, Your Excellency, at this point in time, your legacy is doomed. Meanwhile, Kenyans, we are the alternative because we are warming up to a Mama wa Taifa administration. I'll be learning for the 6th President of the Republic of Kenya to bring the alternative that Wanjiku is waiting for. To the parliamentarians, we can't wait to hear this week what you'll be discussing. Represent Wanjiku. Wanjiku is tired. Wanjiku has given up. Wanjiku has no hope. And if Parliament, you don't become Wanjiku's hope this week, then also we are going to question about the mandate of the members of Parliament. Therefore, we request that every government state officer must from now take a total paradigm shift to focus on Wanjiku. Otherwise, if we don't, the economy will collapse, the nation is headed the wrong direction. But we trust also, with the Mama wa Taifa administration coming soon, the Mama Care agenda will take care of the Republic of Kenya. Asanteni sana.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Esther Waringa, President, Public Service Governance, and an aspiring President of this great republic. Boniface Wanjala Makoha, political analyst and politician, and Dr. Wilfred Mutubwa, legal expert and political commentator. Thank you so much for your very well-considered opinions on the issues we've discussed on matters fuel, state of the economy, and the President's address. Let me now go to this editorial comment as we end this session. Now, the surging cases of exam cheating in the ongoing Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, KCSE exams, is disheartening and raises serious concerns about the integrity of not just our education system, but society as a whole. The suspension of 9 secondary school principals on allegations of involvement in exam malpractice sends a strong signal about the severity of the matter. The futility of a system where success is achieved through cheating is screaming loud. Any structure where dishonesty is rewarded means we are inadvertently nurturing a generation that believes shortcuts and deceit are the way to go. When individuals grow up in an environment where cheating is normalized, it perpetuates a cycle of corruption that infiltrates all sectors, including government. Yet education is meant to be a foundation for personal and societal growth, instilling values that contribute to the development of responsible citizens. When this system is compromised by cheating, it erodes the very principles it is meant to uphold. Addressing corruption at the highest levels of government becomes an even more formidable challenge. The recurrence of exam cheating suggests that there may be gaps in the existing systems, or perhaps the penalties for offenders are not sufficient deterrents. We must reverse this trend to restore confidence in the education system. One way of doing this is by ensuring that individuals found culpable should be punished severely and that these penalties should be made public to serve as deterrents. Letting exam cheats go scot-free is not just a disservice to the education system, but should be considered tantamount to treason against the Kenyan society. And that is a TV47 editorial comment this morning.